Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Ron and Dr. Jerry bringing you the Real Health Rebellion Radio. Here we touch and we torch the lies, decode the science, and empower you to reclaim your health. So I'm Dr. Ron. I'm joined by my co host, Dr. Jerry. Today's episode is a metabolic wake up call. We're exposing the engineered epidemic of obesity. And you heard that right, engineered. How it was designed, who profits from it, and how you can break free.
And to help us dismantle the high-carb deception, we're joined by Dr. William Wong, a classical naturopath, PhD, exercise physiologist, and certified athletic trainer with over 45 years of natural health. He's taught physical medicine, authored books, pioneered systemic enzyme therapy. When it comes to metabolic truth, Dr. Wong doesn't pull any punches.
That's for sure. Dr. Wong, before we dive into the history, the politics, you've said there's one physiological fact that must be understood first because it changes everything. Everything. It changes everything. So, Dr. Wong, lay it on us because I've always loved the fact that you based a lot of almost everything that I've learned from you on physiology. So, welcome aboard.
In life, so the thought when they start if you eat,
Dr. Wong, 1 second, please.
Yes,
Dr. Jerry, are you getting the same feedback I am?
Yeah, it's distorted.
Yeah, your internet connection is going down.
Sorry.
That's
No problem. Okay, let's do it.
Okay. First thing that medical authorities and the authors pushing the high carb diet ignored was the fact that if you eat too much protein, you'll urinate it out. Eat much more than 45 grams of protein in one meal, and about an hour and a half later, you'll go tinkle and you'll see frothy bubbles in the toilet. If you eat too much fat, you'll poop it out. And to prove that to yourself, drink a half a cup to a cup of olive oil, wait an hour, stay close to the toilet, and you'll see it all come out in a gush. But if you eat too many carbs, we have no way of getting rid of excess carbohydrates, and they lay in fat. Now, the big push for a high carbohydrate diet was supposed to be that it gave you energy. Carbs are energy food. And that's how they pushed it. They didn't know about insulin resistance. They didn't know about anything back then. And so people ate all these carbs and got fat. They ate less protein. They lost muscle mass. Their internal organs didn't repair as well as they should have. They decreased fat, which shrunk all the fat in their brain. The brain is 70% bad cholesterol. Everything you think with is a bad cholesterol. Neurotransmitters are bad cholesterols bonded onto B complex vitamins. Memories are bad cholesterol bonded onto amino acids and B complex vitamins. So when you pull back on the protein, pull back on the fats, and only lay in the carbohydrates, you're getting Alzheimer's, you're getting neurologic problems, you're getting shrunken internal organs, and you're getting fat and obese. In the 1970s, the early 1970s, before the advent of the high carb diet, people were 70% less obese and 73% less diabetic.
Wow.
Wow, that's crazy numbers.
Yeah.
So this is before the Ansel Keys shenanigans and so forth, right?
Yep.
Wow. So and we definitely have an obesity epidemic now. There's just no doubt about it. And our population, although some are living longer, they are chronically sick.
Gosh,
Uh,
yes.
so how did we get here? What's your take on it?
It started with the marathoners and the triathletes and the pro tennis players. They are endurance athletes, and they had to eat a lot of carbs in order just to maintain their performance. I mean, when the original marathoner, Philippides, when he ran from Marathon to Athens and said, "We won the war," he dropped dead right afterwards. You know, uh, the marathoners had to throw in a lot of carbs because they needed the fuel. I mean, most of them look like they just walked out of a concentration camp anyway. So they have so much muscle wasting from all the marathoning. Their internal organs get ischemic and they get smaller, or they just lose them and they have to be surgically excised. But that's a whole nother thing. So then some authors picked up on it and wrote 2 books that so influenced America. They were bestsellers for years. The first one was Eat to Win. The second one was Fit for Life. And I won't mention the authors, but they didn't speak to insulin resistance. They didn't speak to the carbohydrates being stored in the body if you didn't run marathons or do triathlons. Their push was how much energy you got. I was head trainer at a college in South Carolina when these diets came out, and the football coaches adopted that diet for the football team. So here are strength athletes doing a diet meant for marathoners. They had 3 wins out of 13 games, and by the middle of the season, half the team had gotten lost because they'd gotten injured.
Wow.
So
So
interesting, Dr. Wong. I'm a cyclist, and I found in my particular case, if I had sashimi for breakfast with good raw green juices, and then towards the end of the race, drink my carb drink, I was flying high. The raw fish kept my blood sugar up for 40 miles.
Good deal. Good
Yeah.
deal. And the cyclists need that. I have trained cyclists that did the Tour de France and were especially good in the Pyrenees section. And they one fellow in his little pocket back behind his jersey kept grilled cheese sandwiches that he would eat along the way.
well, Dr. Wong, were there any researchers that spoke out against this? And if they did, what happened to them?
There were. I don't remember who they were, but they
Uh-huh.
got silenced real fast. If they were academics, their academic positions would be threatened.
Well,
If they were medical professionals, their licenses would be threatened because the government picked up on the low carb diet by the middle of the 80s and made it official. Now, think about this. The FDA established a food pyramid for humans that was exactly the same as the food pyramid that USDA created for livestock that was fattened up for slaughter. They were exactly the same food pyramids. So
Wow.
are we getting fattened up for slaughter, or aliens coming from outer space coming to eat us?
Absolutely.
So are you a conspiracy theorist and saying that
Absolutely, yes.
this sick care system thrives on chronic disease?
Yes.
I think the spandex manufacturers probably paid them because they were making a fortune.
I wish there was a weight limit on spandex so that when these huge battleship tipped women wore them and thought they were all sexy, it just did disintegrate. If we're 70% more obese and have 73% more diabetes, then the medical profession is making a bundle off of that. And I'll add one more thing. The low-fat diet that was foisted on us by the Framingham study at Harvard in 1966 that gave us all the low cholesterol diets. In 1960, the rate of Alzheimer's was 4 patients per every 1 million people.
Wow.
4 patients per every 1 million people. And pathology class and med school taught that in 20 years of practice, you'd likely never see an Alzheimer's patient. After 60 years of the low cholesterol polyunsaturated fat diet, we now have 1 Alzheimer's patient per every 3 people.
Wow. Jeez.
So, so industry driven, not science driven.
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Think of all the patients that got, created from all these fads.
Wow.
Well, also the carbs, and that really screw up the microbiome in your intestines.
Oh, when you throw off the let's just start with the oils. PubMed deleted a number of studies back in the early 2000s. Those studies were from the 1920s through the 1950s, and they showed that polyunsaturated fats created brain damage in primates. I'm sorry, we're primates. So think of all the corn oil, the canola oil, the low fat oil, the whatever it is, polyunsaturated fat oil that people have eaten since the goddamn Framingham study. That's why we have the Alzheimer's of today. Maybe we should all sue Harvard for all that.
Incredible. Well, the other problem too is when it disrupts the microbiome, there's a direct connection between the colon and the brain through the lymphatics and the vagus nerve. So when they call somebody shit for brains, they're not kidding around.
It's better to be called a fathead. Yeah.
Well, you mentioned something in the past about estrogen, and you had a whole website actually of all the estrogen like products on the market. But can you address the fat? Because my gut reaction is that most of these autoimmune diseases are estrogen driven, and what does the fat have to do with that?
Gosh, think of your usual virus. A virus has two coatings. The outermost one is a lipid. The innermost one is a protein. So those 2 coatings protect the DNA inside the virus. That links the type of fat that coats the virus to the type of fats we might eat or be exposed to. We know that estrogen, we know that the yellow fat that people put on, the subcutaneous fat, creates a ton of estrogen. And just to prove that out one day, I had a sebaceous cyst removed, a rather large one, from my sternum. And immediately after, I had my hormones tested. My estrogen levels went down once they got rid of that sebaceous cyst. Yellow fat creates estrogen. So estrogen creates so many different diseases. And think about this. What's the only hormone that strict allopaths ever prescribe? Premarin, which is 7 different types of estrogen from horses. I hold that autoimmune diseases are mostly from vaccines, childhood vaccines, screwing up the DNA, because there has been foreign and hidden DNA in the vaccines from their get-go. Sabin found SV40 simian virus cancer virus in his polio vaccines, and he didn't tell anybody. They didn't list it on the label. They didn't say a word about it. And think of how many people have been adversely affected by the SV40. Think of how the cancer rates shot up between before the
polio shot. Yeah.
polio shot started back in the 1950s to later.
He wouldn't let his own children get the vaccine.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then that simian virus has showed up in a lot of vaccines after that. In fact, most of them probably.
Yes, as long as they're cultured in green monkey tissue,
Right.
which is where the simian virus comes from. Now we have new viruses because they're culturing vaccines in female aborted kidney cells, and what's the other one? Aborted hamster cells. And there's a whole new crop of viruses springing up from the use of those tissues that aren't listed on the label of the vaccines.
So does that mean we get midget viruses now?
Yeah. You know, if all of a sudden you want to eat carrots and the kibble, you know you've been injected with the hamster stuff.
Well, they have us in the wheel already, so they got the first part done. They have us turning the wheel. But let's get back to the subcutaneous fat and the subject of obesity. So that would be another reason why people should really be careful of their diet, and we're going to get into how they can improve that. But the subcutaneous fat is a generator of estrogen, correct?
Yes.
Okay, because that's what you have told me in the past, and I think that's an important point.
You know, first, let's look at the fact that every oncologist knows that 97.3% of all cancers get sparked into existence and then driven in their growth by estradiol and estrone, the two most dangerous forms of estrogen. Estriol, the third form of estrogen in humans, is actually rather benign and protective. And yet, the FDA has been trying to ban estriol while they're pushing the estradiol and the estrone. They want to make more customers for the big pharma industry.
Well, you know, it's interesting. I have a theory. I wrote a book in 2019 called Remove the Splinters and Watch the Body Heal.
Yes.
And what I defined is that, to me, autoimmune is a crock in that I literally use divining rods for my diagnosis now, and it's extremely accurate. I had a medical doctor, a surgeon, who had glioblastoma, and I defined the splinters. It was mercury, it was glyphosate, and EMFs, and it took a year and a half, and I got rid of the cancer in the guy's brain, and it's
wonderful,
documented. So, and I've seen this with rheumatoid arthritis too. I had a woman, 34 years, rheumatoid, and it was coming from a strep infection from a root canal tooth.
Oh.
And I got rid of the strep infection. Her rheumatoid of 34 years disappeared.
Fantastic.
So there's a combination of things. Estrogen, no doubt about it.
Yeah.
Poor quality fats, no doubt about it. But what's missing, I think, in the equation is people aren't defining the triggers to the disease process.
You know, figuring those out is something beyond the current medical education. You've gone beyond all that you learned in school. Your clinical experience has taught you more than you ever learned in school, and you branched off to do all sorts of other ways of both diagnosis and treatment when you went alternative, and that has made all the difference. Imagine if we could teach that in school. Let's say we extended medical school for 2 to 3 years, made it a 7-year course like it is in the UK, and you did both your undergrad and your grad school at exactly the same time, but you threw in all these other methods of diagnosis and all these other methods of treatment. Think of how much better humankind would be.
Well, you know, it's interesting. I developed a technique I call the virtual injection.
Mm-hmm.
I had a patient probably about 6 years ago. He had Parkinson's, and he literally came in, arms, legs shaking all over the place. He worked for a pesticide company. He had 5 or insecticides in the left side of his brain. So I took a homeopathic remedy called isopathic rings.
Mm-hmm.
I took a laser and I pulsed it through the remedy into the left side of his brain. And I also put him on scalar energy for 18 minutes. He
Mm-hmm.
walked out 98% normal.
Fantastic.
Okay, gentlemen, I appreciate all this information, but we're talking about obesity, and I want to keep this channel focused. So we
For the fatheads. Okay.
now we can do this on our. Dr. Smith has his own blog on Thursdays. I have mine on Mondays. But this channel has to be
Focus.
focused on the problem and a potential solution, and so that our listeners can hear this all in a half hour and get on with their day. So I love it, but we'll discuss that on Dr. Ron Unfiltered, Uncensored. So, Dr. Wong, let's go back to obesity.
Okay.
So, how can we reverse some of this insulin resistance, some of this diabetes, some of this obesity? How can we escape the trap and not become a patient for life?
Well, the most important thing is to lower your carb intake. Somewhere between 70 to 80 grams total per day. Now, if you think about this, yogurt, Yoplait or Dannon from the supermarket has about 30, 40 grams of carbohydrate in it. A glass of milk has 30 grams of carbohydrate per ounces. So, 70 grams is not a lot. You can get 70 grams in just a couple of things that. So if you keep your carbohydrates low, your body will begin to use its own fat reserves, its own energy reserves as energy, almost like the keto diet, but you're not exactly ketosis. While I like the eating of leans and high proteins and stuff, I'm a little wary of making the brain go into ketosis because we all know funny things happen when you're in ketosis. So at 2 different Olympics, 72 and 76, they did the same study just to see if it would correlate. And they found the exact same findings, regardless of whether you're a gymnast or a skater or a cyclist or a weightlifter. You only need 1 gram of protein per kilo of body weight. So we keep our grams under 60, 70 a day. We keep our carbs under 60, 70 grams a day. We eat 1 gram of protein per kilo of body weight for every 2 pounds. So just take your body weight, divide it by 2, and that's roughly how much protein you need to have. And then have all the fats you want to, as long as they're not from grains or from any polyunsaturated source or like margarine. Margarine was first developed as lubrication for airplane landing craft, landing gear. I mean, gosh.
Well, there wasn't one plane that had a heart attack either.
No stents.
So
yeah. Well, how about the high fructose corn syrup problem?
Yes, that's part of the carb problem.
Yeah.
The higher the density, the sugar, the more your insulin is going to react to it. More insulin you're going to use up. The less insulin you've got. Compound that with the fact that as we get older, we grow internal inflammation. If our bicep gets tired of working, it stops and it rests. If your liver gets tired of working, if your heart gets tired of working, if your lungs get tired of working and stops to rest, you're dead. So since that machinery can't stop working, it gets inflamed over time. Chronic inflammation, even low chronic inflammation, produces fibrosis. In the pancreas, what happens is that inflammation and fibrosis begins to block off the channels, the little tubes, which the beta cells use to get insulin into the bloodstream. So we make less insulin, become more insulin resistant, and that just adds and compounds to the problem.
Well, here's another problem too. People take stevia and they think that they're saving calories, but from what I read, stevia stimulates insulin release anyway. So it's you're not saving anything.
And the other bad thing about that is that it causes impotence. That study came out about 15 years ago, and it was backed up by a few other studies and clinical experience. So, if you want to go to a monastery and you want to be celibate, yeah, eat a lot of stevia.
Well, I don't have to go to a monastery. I can stay home and be impotent.
Well, yeah, stevia does stimulate the brain to want more sweets because it knows it's not getting the real glucose,
Yeah.
and it interferes with the microbiome that you both have been talking about. So
Well,
definitely not the way to go.
Yep.
I'll share this one pearl with you. I know I'm going off the reservation here, but if you take liquid stevia and put it on the cut or wound, it heals it in record time. It's amazing.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's a good pearl.
Yeah.
Nifty, yeah. Nifty. Now, getting back to the microbiome, when you eat all those bad fats and you eat a lot of carbs, you're going to throw off the good bacteria, because a lot of that good bacteria comes from the protein. The years ago, a few years ago, there was a thing called ground-based probiotics, and that's what the cow pooped out. That's what the goat pooped out. Okay, and then it went into the dirt, it went into the grass, the cow or the goat ate it up again, and now it's an animal-based probiotic. If we throw in all the good bacteria that we need, especially the antibiotic, the heat, and the acid-proof strains that are now widely available, then we help to correct in 8 to 16 weeks, for example, of taking a good probiotic. Your intestinal lining, which is epithelial tissue as opposed to the soft connective tissue that the tube is, your intestinal lining will start creating immunoglobulins and become the largest producer of immunoglobulins in your body, creating 70% of the immunoglobulins. So building up your good bacteria in 8 to 16 weeks will help improve your overall health and your resistance to disease.
Wow. All right. So, Dr. Wong, to be metabolically healthy, do you have any suggestions for our audience? We already know they have to limit carbs. You went all through that.
Bacon and eggs for breakfast, bacon and sausage for breakfast.
Yeah.
Okay.
Eat cat food. It's 90% protein.
Yeah. Steak with a sprig of parsley. That's what I consider a salad. But steaks with leafy greens for supper, some sort of a lean meat or dairy or eggs for lunch. The animal fats are essential for making hormones. Take a look at the Seventh-day Adventists. They don't eat any animal fats. They don't eat any meat. And their replacement rate, their birth rate is so bloody low that they have to keep on recruiting into their religion because they're not making any kids to put into the religion.
So in reality, it's a birth control method.
Yes, it is. Exactly right. And, the Indians figured that out. The Hindus may be the Hindus may be vegetarian, but they're ovo-lacto vegetarians. And having been in India, having lectured there, they sneak an awful lot of red meat into their foods. They Cuisinart it so well. They mix it with eggs. They mix it with milk, turn it into a cream, put it in what looks like a tortilla almost, or or over rice or whatever. But they're not as vegetarian as folks have made them out to be.
Well, the bottom line is the so-called vegan diets and strict vegetarian were designed to destroy part of the population.
Yes, there was a naturopath in Phoenix who actually made a video about that. Rather proud too, because he was a student of mine back when I taught at Southwest, and he pointed out that in the entire history of man, there have been no vegan societies that have lasted longer than 5 generations. By 5 generations, they've died out because they're not making any babies. They're all completely sterile.
Unbelievable.
I can attest to that. I was in my mid years when I was 40 and 50. We did macrobiotics, and I personally felt good for a while. But then I came into the office one day, and my nurse said to me, "Dr. Repesi, the patients are asking me if you're dying and should they look for another doctor." So I called my wife. I said, "Meet me at Morton Steakhouse at 6 o'clock."
Well, I have a similar story that in 1980, I went into macrobiotics. After 2.5 months, I would have killed for a piece of meat, man. I had a pretty rare prime rib. I felt great.
Yeah. You know, the A and the B blood types last longer as vegetarians. The O's,
That die.
right. Vegetarianism is suicide for an O.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. They need roadkill. I see these vegetarians. I said, you better get some roadkill in your diet.
They better do what the Indians do and
Right.
sneak the red meat in.
That's it.
Well, look, Dr. Wong, Dr. Jerry and I, we know that knowledge is power, but on this station, knowledge is rebellion.
Yes.
And we want them to know what kinds of lies they are being fed, and not buy into the system. We often quote Socrates, who said, "I can't teach you anything, but I can teach you how to think." So we want to give them some fodder to think about, some ideas that is common sense.
Yes, exactly.
And to lead their lives, and well, we're going to get more into the spiritual side, to body, mind, and spirit, but with knowledge base. And I really appreciate when you do that. Jerry, you have anything else for Dr. Wong?
Yeah, never trust a doctor who has dying plants in his reception room.
I knew a chiropractor 40 years ago who would take the remnants of his Coca-Cola and feed it to his office plants. They thrived on it. They loved it. They were all green and growing all over the place. And yeah, so
and they never slept.
right. Well,
I use it on my golf cart battery terminals. It's really great.
Exactly. Yeah. So if you're going to use soda, clean your batteries with it, throw it into your house plants along with some water, and everything will be fine.
So look, I want to ask our listeners to really stay rebellious, question everything, challenge your doctor, join this movement, share this episode, and we hope to continue to bring you this great news and great live information. And next week we're going to ask Dr. Wong to come back and straighten us out on cholesterol. They have demonized cholesterol. It is not what they say. It is only to sell, $4 billion worth of statins. And heart disease is still the number one cause of death in this country. But remember, medical errors are number 3, ladies and gentlemen. So we're keeping up with heart disease and cancer. And Dr. Wong, I have all new teeth, so sometimes I spit a little bit, but I'm only 6 weeks with these new chiclets.
Okay, I've only got two of my own teeth left, and I blame my mother for that, because she didn't eat any dairy at all while I was being gestated, and my teeth were awful. But yeah, I gotta, if I smile under purple light, under violet light, my teeth glow white. Yeah. So.
Well, I got all new choppers, baby.
Yeah,
All right, Dr. Jerry, we have anything else for Dr. Wong? And then we'll have him back next week. Is that okay with you, Dr. Wong?
That's fine by me. Yes.
Yeah, let's do it. And let's talk about what we could call the cholesterol derangement syndrome. And it's it's just for money as far as I'm concerned. But we'll talk about that next week. Dr. Jerry?
Yeah, I look forward to it because I learned so much from your pearls. I even took notes today.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, you've listened to the Real Health Rebellion Radio. We've been honored to have Dr. Wong. He never disappoints, even when he's not feeling good.
We'll have to congratulate him for his electronic wizardry because he got on our show without any problem.
Yeah.
Well, it's probably one of the first times I haven't had problems getting on the show.
How about
most of the time I'm in the boonies and the internet isn't great out there.
Right.
All right, so let's do this. Dr. Jerry, tell the audience about your blog that you do on Thursdays.
Yeah, we do it, Dr. Smith's Live, and we have guests that had Dr. Ron on, and we have other people come on, and we talk about similar topics, how the American people are getting screwed by the healthcare industry. And, we try to educate people, and one area that's not being addressed is the dental terrorists, because people have no clue that the materials. I had one patient come up from Washington, D.C. because she had a temporary cement and it had toluene in the goddamn cement.
Ooh.
And if you look at the diagram, every tooth, the nerve goes directly to the brain. So anytime you put a medicament on a tooth, it goes to your brain. But we try to expose. In fact, I'm talking about cranial distortions on Thursday, and 99.999% of the dentists have no clue. They could put a simple filling on there and torque your head, and you'll have back pain, and no one will connect the dots on it. So we try to enlighten people on topics that you're not going to hear on the 11 o'clock news.
Yep. I learned cranial adjustment 45, almost 50 years ago from a dentist.
Well, dentists and guess what? The dental associations do not consider cranial manipulation as part of the Dental Act. And in reality, they're violating their own dental law, because anytime you modify the biting surface on the tooth, you're distorting the human cranium.
Mm-hmm.
And Dr. Wong, why did you tell our listeners about your great supplement company and your blog and what you do?
Oh gosh, I've been a naturopath since 1981. So I have a supplement company that I believe has the most powerful supplements of their kind. We're a niche company. We don't do everything. We have the strongest systemic enzyme on the planet, the most potent. And we have other herbal supplements for testosterone making, estrogen control, adrenal health, probiotic health. Matter of fact, we just came out with a new probiotic, Flora something. I'm sorry. I forgot the name. My wife's going to be miffed at me because she came up with the name and I've forgotten it. But we keep on researching. We keep on looking. We keep on making things stronger. We have found ways of taking things that are only mildly potent, finding the strongest extracts or the strongest potency of enzymes or the strongest, best absorbed vitamins, and putting them into a package and creating supplements that actually work. Most people take supplements and they can't tell if they're working or not. Is it working? Yeah, maybe. I don't know. With most of our stuff, you can tell it's working.
Well, I got to tell you.
Last but not least, let me get a plug in for Dr. Ron, unfiltered, uncensored, rated number 4 out of 50 doctor podcasts on the internet. I'm very proud of that. I have just completed number 631, and I release these on Monday, but they are available on any place that you get a podcast, any service, even Spotify, and I'm on Waze. But when you're driving, you can get my podcast, iHeartRadio, and we not only are unfiltered, uncensored, we are unapologetic, and we amplify the truth. So, and that is available any place. Although, if you download the Podbean app, Podbean, they will notify you of anything. And Dr. Wong is on Podbean also, but he's being modest right now. All right, Jerry, let's just, what you got? We're going to wrap it up.
My feedback from your Zymescence, I've had patients that had surgical scars that after 9 months of taking Zymescence, they disappear.
Yes. I had a plastic surgeon who called me. He had a robin's egg keloid on the thenar eminence of his hand since he was a small child. He'd gotten an injury, keloid grew there. He was using Zymescence with his patients so that they wouldn't scar over when he did all of his beautiful work. And he was taking it himself just for general reduction of inflammation and the fibrosis that it causes. And he's brushing his teeth one day and he happens to look down at his hand and the keloid's gone. He'd had that keloid for 40 some odd years.
Right.
And he looks down and it's gone. Cool.
Magic. Well, thank you so much for sharing with our audience. I'm sure we're going to make some waves, and probably between now and next week, we'll have the black helicopters over our heads.
Or the drones, yeah.
Yes,
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's it. We'll see you next week, 11 o'clock on Tuesday with Dr. B. He's really a great, I can't, I haven't, to be honest, never met him in person, but I consider him a dear friend, and I would give him a kidney. Because who wants an 86-year-old kidney? But anyway, all right. Goodbye, everybody.
God bless you.